8th of March at 2 p.m. I'm calling the meeting to order. I guess the first comment I would make is that we have a guest at the table, Susan Bryan. She has applied for a position on the committee, and I have invited her to sit up at the table. I think that's would make it for a little more comfortable exchange. I will, there's a fair amount of detail. I'll attempt to point out things to you so you get some gist of what the other folks on the committee are talking about. And we can talk after the meeting about the interview that's coming up and things like that. So,
Excuse me just a minute. Brian with a
Well-
Y or an I?
Why?
Why?
That's good, because you should know I'm resigning from the committee in June when my term is up.
Oh.
I'm afraid I really can't deal with this and the other things that I have to deal with. I just got the official letter today, and that's what I'm going to tell them.
okay.
I can't deal with
Well, we're
things.
sorry to see you go, but
Well-
Charles always encourages you to nominate a replacement when you leave.
I know.
He doesn't let you get away
I've known her since
entirely
she was-
scot-free.
I've known her since she was,
Okay, well, you get
taking
covered.
credit, huh?
We'll let you, you'll get credit for that one.
I haven't seen Sue very much since she grew up and went away and
Where'd you
came
go
back.
Where did you go?
I went to Prescott College, and I traveled abroad for a little bit as well, so.
Wesley?
Oh, you're a little bit.
No, I went to Prescott
Oh,
College,
Presley, yeah.
Prescott,
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 Okay.
it's in Arizona.
yes.
So, all right, well, I'm Charles Harris, the chair. We have Michael
Mike Kozowski.
Kozowski,
Just to introduce myself to you.
Scott Lewis.
and you know
You know
Janet.
Janet.
Adele Vaughn.
Jimmy Duarte.
So, all right. Since we did not meet in February, I have been thinking that perhaps I need to kind of just catch us up on what's been happening over the last 2 months or so. And but I think it might be helpful if we go over the minutes, the November, December, and January minutes, because they'll kind of warm our brains up to things that have been happening. So, let's see, that would be Adele with the November minutes.
I sent them out yesterday. Did you see them, Mike? Probably not, right? Because you don't.
I know, I don't have email, I'm sorry. That became a major problem yesterday when I signed up for online banking and
Oh, yeah.
if you don't have a home computer, each time I now sign on at the library.
You're going to
I
have
have-
to weaken, Mike.
Okay, I'll take your advice. I'll do it. Thank you.
Let's see. Well, Jimmy, you weren't here, but do you want to see them
I
anyway?
read-
You probably got them before. The only thing that's different is the stuff in red
I
on the
read
back.
them this morning.
Did you see the?
Yeah.
Not the latest one. I didn't see it today. I think I looked a couple of days ago, but I didn't.
Yeah, I said.
Missed, it wasn't out yet.
Charles, you have it?
I have a paper copy in front of me, and I do not have any comments for the November 10 minutes.
I forgot, remind me what the red, we had to add it, right?
Yeah.
So how does it, if we vote in the minutes, we vote it with a correction?
Yeah, these haven't been voted on before.
Oh, okay. Seemed,
So, everybody's comfortable with it?
I move we accept them as presented.
a second.
All right, any comments? Seeing none, those in favor, say aye.
All
All
right.
right, looks like it's unanimous. So, all right, approved. Let's do the December minutes, and that would be Adele.
I did not recirculate those. I sent out an
Yeah, I think
email
we all
like
had-
this sometime last week.
They've been out there long enough to look at online, since I go once a month. I did see those online.
You're going to have to do it once a week, Mike. We're going to get you into the real world again.
Jeez. Okay.
All right. So, the we have the 8th of December, and I do not have any comments for you, Adele. I think you've captured everything that I was thinking of there.
I move we accept the December minutes then.
So, all those in
second.
favor? It's 5, so it's 5. I guess 0.
And everything's going on, I forgot to look at this.
Did you say 5?
I
Yeah, I
looked at
think-
them this
1,
morning.
2, 3, 4,
I
and
found-
5.
One time I looked, I didn't have
I
this.
don't know if Janet was
You
there.
made the,
I
Oh,
have a
Adele.
few,
Oh,
I have
oh.
a few changes from the January ones that Adele gave me.
Okay.
And I'm happy to put them in. There's only one point that maybe she raised the issue where we talked about the alternative wording for the, what's it, you call it, the announcement of the mission.
charge.
The charge. And I think we had a lot of discussion on the original version that you had, and then you had a new version at the meeting, which I circulated in here. It's the 5th document that would be down on here. Draft description dated January 6th of the role of the Water Management Committee. And Adele pointed out that because we voted on it, I should basically say what we voted on, which I forgot. And so I would say we voted on the description. After the discussion, we all unanimously agreed that the new description of January 6th was good.
okay.
And I will put wording in appropriately.
Okay, and that's in this package of stuff?
It's on the, I don't have it. It's on the back of the agenda.
Oh,
So you've got my, because I know I told Charles that the original version at one point, maybe that was the year, but the time before.
okay.
Yeah,
So you may not have seen that.
No,
That's the only
I
problem.
didn't, because I haven't seen this before. It was at the meeting, I wasn't at the meeting. But you're only saying that the people at the meeting voted in favor of it,
Yes.
so you're not saying
Yeah.
anything about me. And so you just took this as is, you didn't change any of this language?
the,
It's a long time ago now.
okay, no.
There was some suggestions, but I don't know if we
Well, you
changed
see,
it.
that's what I wrote down in my notes, but I didn't write, I mean, I just said we had a lot of good discussion.
We did.
Right, no, what I did was, I received a request from the search committee. They were looking for a statement of what this committee does, and they were going to put it in a brochure that they were making. So I wrote something, and I sent it out to the table, and I got good comments back from Janet. So she tightened up kind of some of my wording. And so what I sent in was the edited piece. And, but by looking at,
I think that's the one that you circulated.
That went to the search committee, that there?
That's,
yeah, I think so. I can't remember the text, but I can remember generally the shapes of the paragraphs.
I know that,
That works for me.
I know that wasn't the original because I was a little clear on what I thought about the original.
Yeah, so, no, so I,
No, all I'm asking is, so if this is what you gave to the committee for the January, whatever it
I
was,
think it
12th
was,
meeting,
yes.
then the committee agreed to this as it stands, because Janet's minutes had said, had many good suggestions for changes, and then Mike made a motion to accept them, and my comment to her was, without saying what was accepted in the motion, you haven't accomplished anything. And in other words, you don't have any record in the minutes. If there was something other than this January 6th thing, it ceases to exist unless you get it in the minutes.
Well,
So-
I can put that in, I said, see document 5, I mean, I have to make some wording. that
Yeah,
says
no,
it
but
right.
I mean, now, I guess, I sense, I wasn't there, so I don't know, but I sense that now people are not certain whether they agreed with this just as it is, or
Yeah,
they suggested some word changes, so.
no,
One word change that I changed, but I can't remember
well,
what word it was.
you're helping my memory. Okay, yes, it's true, we circulated it at the January meeting. And I think I did some adjustments. And what I sent in to the official copy was on my own. I
Oh,
took.
so wait a minute, this isn't the last version.
So I'm not clear on that point, but I am clear that I think that's the copy that was presented at that meeting.
I think
So
so,
the
too.
notes can say that, and they don't need to go any further because they're just correct as of that date.
No, that's not the point, actually. That wasn't what was presented at the meeting. Let me read the
It's
paragraph.
the little paragraph, it's this one
Okay,
here.
yeah, okay. Discussion regarding the description of the role of the Water Management Committee produced some good suggestions for alternative wording. And a motion was proposed by Guzowski to accept the changes, seconded by Lewis. Well, this paragraph would suggest to me that there were some changes to this.
I think, as we've discussed it, I think there must have been.
Okay.
I couldn't put this back together, seeing it was
Okay.
so long ago.
Well, if what you're trying to do in the minutes, I wasn't here, so I don't have any dog in this fight, but, or in this matter, but if what you're trying to do in the minutes is to memorialize the changes that you made, you haven't done that, because the changes are not referenced, and there's no way anybody reading the minutes could know what changes you made. So, that's up to you what you want to do about it.
He's right.
But, so that's.
Well, I mean, my feeling was this version that was here was so much, excuse me, Charles, better than the one that was seen before, that the changes weren't that much. I mean, this document that we circulated was very different from the very first thing that you emailed to us, or however we did this in this distance past.
Well, I don't know, Adele, if we made the January minutes read to the effect that Charles is going to do further editing and complete the document, does that kind of serve the different interests there? Because it's what happened.
Yes, better represents what happened.
It represents what happened, but it's not Mike's motion. There's a motion in here
Oh,
to
you're
approve
saying
the
to
changes,
changes.
and no one knows what the changes
Changes
are.
were,
So, I mean, I don't want to beat a dead horse, so.
Well,
That's all I could say to the matter, that normally, I mean, what the minutes are.
Well,
is-
maybe I don't say accept the changes, or we have to say some other word.
No, the problem is that the purpose
Legal
of the
means.
minutes is to be a record, at least a summary record of what transpired at the meeting. For most things, you can, discussions, it was discussed. But if you say a motion was made to do X, there should be an explanation of what X was. And simply saying a motion was made to approve unidentified changes, I don't believe identifies what X was. Now, I guess one way to do that is somebody could go back and review
Tape.
the tape, and, obviously not me, because I wasn't there, and I'm not doing these minutes, and try to pull out of that tape what in fact transpired in your discussion.
Janet, that would either be you or me if we did that.
I don't think there was very much in the changes that I remember when we did 2016. And I'm just going to do that.
It was, but, okay. Well, I'd be willing to take it on, I guess.
Okay,
So we can't approve those minutes.
So we'll bring it up at the next,
Okay.
so, yeah, we'll just table
Table
the
those
12,
minutes, and-
the January minutes to the next meeting. So, and I will make myself a note to do it.
There's a copy around somewhere of what was actually sent, right?
No, not a
No,
hard
you're
copy.
gonna have to go to the video,
Ours, I
Well,
mean.
then-
Oh,
have to go to
no,
the
he's-
videotape.
No, I think he
you better
sent
give me
something
back
out,
then the
didn't he?
documents so I keep them all together, because I need that one. Should be fine.
Okay.
Yeah, I think, Janet has sent us the
All right,
draft.
let me do this.
We have on the
Is that
table
what
right
you
now.
need? No, this is what you need, right? This one?
Yes, yes.
All right. I will scan this and then send it to you, is that
Yeah,
okay?
yeah.
So,
I may have it. No, if he sent it here, I probably don't. Charles has it.
All right, I can just do it.
so, all right.
Move on.
Okay, so we have finished with the reviewing our minutes, and I'm a fair amount has transpired on the subject of the Eastham Town Cove water quality. And I was hoping that we could go to it because I have been to a couple of meetings that I may in fact be the only person who attended it, but they are important meetings because it's the contractors that Jane Crowley has supporting her delivered their findings to the Board of Selectmen. And what I have up on the screen right now is what Liz Moran presented to the Board of Selectmen on the 20th of January. And just to back up, to kind of frame your thoughts here, give you a little rundown. Okay, now Eastham did do some wastewater planning with the help of Stearns and Wheeler. And Stearns and Wheeler, the contractor, presented reports back in January and I guess June of '09. And if you've never seen those documents, I'll just kind of hold up copies of them. But they were the first documents that were kind of available to me to read through and see what the town had done. And so it was basically looking into the wastewater situation here in Eastham that dealt with both saltwater and freshwater. And these are the two reports. One, essentially, they came up, and that's where we have their recommendation to do town water, put in municipal water supply. We also have their recommendation to go forward and study the water quality in our ponds, which is what Ecologic did for us. And we have their report, I guess it's December of '11. So, and that led to the alum treatment. So we have that done. And they also said to, let's see, investigate the possibility of in some way joining Orleans in a wastewater collection activity, if that should come about. But back there in 2009, it was still something that Orleans was discussing, whatnot. So but then this April, the health agent, Jane Crowley, applies for a $30,000 grant from Mass Department of Environmental Protection, and we get it. And then she goes forward with Liz Moran, who reviews the Massachusetts Estuary Program document for Town Cove and also for Rock Harbor, and puts it in what would be kind of layman's terms, make it a little bit easier to understand. And there was some controversy about that report as to, I think, the science in it, and there was a third-party review. So she goes to the report, she goes also to the third-party review, gets the information, and comes up with, I guess it's about a 20-page technical paper, which she presented to the Board of Selectmen back on the 5th of November for this of 2015. All right, so then by December, Jane Crowley has the help of the engineering firm GHD, which is basically the follow-on engineer firm for Stearns and Wheeler. That same company becomes GHD. And she is working with them to basically come up with presentations that explain to the Board of Selectmen what in fact is needed and what in fact we know. And because although it doesn't jump out immediately, all of the towns on the Cape are going to need to give a watershed report to the Cape Cod Commission by, in June, and that's one of the requirements that comes out of the lawsuit that was involved in the Cape-wide regional planning, what they call
No,
208
Charles.
section planning.
That's in the Cape Cod Commission 208 plan.
It's in the 208 plan? Okay, all right, I'm corrected on that. So, the, so what I have here is the presentation that Liz Moran made, and I thought it might just be helpful not to study the slides, but just to kind of thumb our way through them to get a sense for what Liz presented to the Board of Selectmen, because we kind of have to be able to see the situation through what they know and what they've been told. So,
Has anybody here seen this before?
Yes.
Yes. And I was here at that same meeting.
oh,
So I've seen,
okay.
I think,
No, I didn't.
you've not, okay, so there are enough people here to then make it worthwhile to re-review it. It is a quick presentation.
Oh, okay, yeah, and,
You mean at the select board?
No, it was on
yeah.
January 20th, right here in this room.
Oh.
And
Yeah.
Liz Moran and Jane sat there and they.
I remember them here. I
But Jane sent everything
Since
out.
sent it out too, so
Very
I've
useful
seen it
information.
at least once, if not.
I guess I have.
oh, okay, well,
Said
I don't
anything
mean to, push us into minutia, I was just kind of
Mike, at least physically.
Yes,
yeah.
just saying.
All right, well, I'll tell you what, let's see what we have here. Okay, scope of services, this is Liz Moran saying this is what the town of Eastham has asked me to do. And so, all right, setting the nitrogen limits. Basically, the key idea here is that if you have nitrate dissolved in the ocean water higher than 0.45 milligrams per liter, it kills the eelgrass, and the eelgrass is the necessary habitat for the growth of all the small animals and organisms that live in the estuary. And so when the state Massachusetts Estuary Program comes up with a number called a TMDL and basically says that's what has to be removed to get back down to the level that's considered environmentally appropriate. Okay, so we have Nauset Marsh here, and it's part with the inlet, and so this particular table I had not seen any other place before, so I think the consultant has kind of gone through all the different details and assembled the information that's there. And
I would just also point out, rather than people maybe want to take notes on this, this is all in the, before, Janet has just given me what was provided at the January meeting, and the January meeting
It has
had
it
an
all.
update of Liz Moran's memo.
Yep.
And this is what she based her presentation on January
Yeah, you're right.
20th. And all these tables are in this memo.
okay, all right, I didn't remember that. Maybe.
Well, I didn't know it till she gave it to me. so.
Yeah,
That's
That
why
was
we've
the
seen it
first
at least
time I
twice.
saw
Yeah,
it.
we saw once
And I then
and
looked at it
once at the
online, and I
actual
looked at
meeting.
the other presentation online.
Because Janet
that,
invited
Jane
us to
sent
that
round,
meeting.
which I can't remember what the other one was, that was going to be
Yeah.
given to the Board of Selectmen, and decided I didn't need to come to the meeting, I'd read the things already.
all right, well, I'll tell you, let me just, I think there's only a couple slides here. There is a concern of red tide. When the oxygen content of the water gets low, we have the red tide, and of course, the red tide is something that keeps us from being able to eat the shellfish and other fish that are coming out of Nauset Marsh. We have the depletion of the water, and basically that 6 milligrams per liter is the minimum standard. And this is a little bit complicated, but it basically shows that there's, as years go forward, there's less oxygen in the water, and the 80 and 75% sort of represents how many of the particular samplings in that year.
Just leave that up for one quick second.
Yeah.
You notice on the left-hand side, it says summertime average. One of the Board of Selectmen, Wally Adams, caught that and asked a question directly to Liz about getting some winter readings. I've been trying to get him some winter readings out there because he wanted a more annualized look at it. I don't know particularly what he was searching for, but I just wanted to point that out to the committee. Wally did pick that up and had to ask for some additional information with regards to water.
Right, yeah.
It was a very astute question.
Oh, this is deep water stratification, presumably.
Yeah, well, but the concern is if the animal lives out there
In the
for a
summer.
year, it's got to live both in the winter and the summer, and if it doesn't live through the summer, then it doesn't live
Well,
live in the
penny
winter.
oysters don't work in the winter.
They're sleeping.
Well, let's see, okay.
When they capture them.
And what they're saying here, sources of nitrogen that's getting in it, well, the big source is what they call benthic flux. Benthic flux is just last year's organic material settled down to the bottom and then regenerated with the warmer weather in the spring back up and dissolved into the water again. But to me, that's a bit interesting. See, they've got surface runoff, which would be 4% coming in from Route 6. But one of the initiatives is to, in fact, put in a device that would catch the runoff from Route 6 and do some treatment before it goes into Salt Pond. But we've been told by the DPW that possibly the state will do that in 2018, and the estimates of a couple of years ago was $800,000 worth of engineering work. And you see that 4%, to me, I just sort of set those pieces together in my mind side by side and say, okay, we'll wait and see how it's going to turn out.
Some of that runoff also from the Park Street property, does that make it down that way?
Well, this is Salt Pond, this particular slide, but yes, we have the same
I
situation.
asked our DPW if we could do some street sweeping there and keep that parking lot as clean as possible and eliminate some of the runoff.
The runoff into Minister
Schoolhouse.
Schoolhouse does affect Salt Pond because they've now decided that the watershed for Salt Pond extends up there.
Up that way, you're right.
They've expanded I don't
what they
recall in
go-
which
goes
one of
underground.
these things, the many papers that go floating around, but there's one paper that shows the difference between, it may be in Liz's thing, the difference between what they originally defined as the watersheds and what they are now defining.
Yes,
And they're expanded,
right.
at least for Salt Pond. I don't think for Town Cove, but I wouldn't be absolutely certain my memory is clear. I'd have to double check it.
Yeah,
So the water getting from Minister's Pond to Salt Pond is probably going through the ground. There's no direct stream, is there?
Yeah, no, it's the groundwater.
So it would be included in the groundwater. It's not just septic is part of groundwater.
yes.
But it's also, whatever
Yeah.
water comes out
Yeah,
of
whatever.
And,
there.
when I look at this, I would say, well, Ecologic has demonstrated their technical proficiency to us, so I accept the numbers that they present. And this is Liz Moran's chart, based on all of the reading she did that the town paid for her to go and review. And these are the best numbers that she thinks are there for what's going on.
And yeah, the organic material that's rotting from previous years, is there anything that would make that better over time? Something that is being done or could be done?
I don't,
I understand the groundwater business, with the septic, but I never,
depends, yeah.
never saw this breakdown before.
Well, I don't know the answer to that, but I'm hoping that the consultants that the town has hired to work the issue can come up with something more definitive in that. I go do the sampling on Salt Pond 5 times in the summer, and I'm amazed at how low the dissolved oxygen readings are. They're the lowest of any readings in Town Cove, Nauset Marsh, or all of Pleasant Bay.
Doesn't flush
what-
that now.
It's the flushing, it's a very narrow, you can barely get a kayak
Very
through there at
narrow.
low tide, yeah.
Yeah, but again, the professionals are going to have to help us figure out what we can do that's cost-effective.
Yeah, I mean, if all the stuff we're doing is only going to improve the 17%, well, plus the 4%, it looks like we're trying to wag the dog with the tail.
Fighting a large dinosaur with the best net.
Well, I can tell you that one of the gentlemen that I spoke with at Windmill Weekend told me 35 years ago, as a boy, he would catch flounder in Salt Pond. And, you know, with my limited biological training, I was saying there's no way that there'd be any live flounder today in the bottom of Salt Pond. But there were some, according to that gentleman, 35 years ago. So, yeah.
I think, and again, I mean, I haven't obviously looked at this stuff in a few months. I did not spend my time away reading this. But my memory of part of the theory of this is that by reducing the amount of new nitrogen entering the watershed, you are also affecting the sediment in the bottom and reducing that. And I mean, I have to go back and
Well, it's not
find
gonna
where
get
I'd read
worse.
this, huh?
It's not going to get worse if you
No.
take out the new stuff
No,
coming in.
But it will actually get better. Even the benthic flux will get better because there is not new nitrogen entering the system.
Well, it's going to be different composition.
Yeah, Adele, that's my understanding of it, too. I mean,
So it isn't that we're only keeping the new out. By keeping the new out, I guess, my lay understanding of it, somehow we're allowing the material to heal itself by not requiring it to deal with new.
And Charles, I wanted to mention one thing. At the Orleans Yacht Club in Orleans, I usually take my lunch there, I saw a live flounder caught by a great blue heron right there, and the oxygen readings are particularly low also in that location. So they are still around.
Sure.
But it was amazing to see. The
There's
flounder
a-
come up, I was like, holy, it was a small one, but it was there. It was a flounder.
Yeah, you said the bird caught it, huh?
Bird caught it. I was like,
I see
Well, the
him
birds
quite
are
a
all
bit
there, but-
clamming.
I see lots of clams being done there, but that was the first time I saw a flounder caught by a
And I
bird.
used to catch flounder at Salt Pond also, and all the old timers told me that it was from the culvert that comes under the road that goes to Locust Road.
That's-
Pumps way too much fresh water in there.
Yeah.
That's why they stopped going in there. It's more fresh than it is salt.
And you can see it's almost frozen today or yesterday when I went by.
That's why there's 1 million ducks and geese sitting on that culvert,
It's
because they have
fresh.
to have the fresh water every day. And they get the one that comes under the highway from Locust Road.
That's it.
Interesting.
And this time of year, the fresh water is really high.
yes.
Every spring. It comes pouring out of there.
Yeah,
That's what I've always been told.
yeah,
May not have
They
as
stop
much to do
catching
with the
flounder there
oxygen.
as soon as they put the fresh water to it.
yeah. Well, all right, let me, as I say, I don't mean to take up all our time, but I just wanted to, I thought Liz started us off with some good thinking. So these are calculated reductions in loading. Salt Pond is a priority, basically. I think that's the last slide, isn't it? Oh, it's a little bit more. Okay, adaptive management, that was the last bullet that she had there. Basically, we're in a period of assessing the problem, designing some kind of a fix, going into a monitoring phase to see if it's doing any good, evaluate how much good it's happened. If it's not doing it, go back. And let's see, I'm hoping we can get to the other slides, but basically, when they talk about design, they're saying that permeable reactive barriers are a possibility for Salt Pond. And they're also saying that floated construction wetlands these are what they call non-traditional technologies for making the water better. It essentially pulls the nitrate out of the water, and the traditional alternative would in fact be sewage collection and treatment at a formal plant. And we are coming up on the fact that Orleans has voted to go forward with a sewage wastewater treatment plant for the town village. But right now, we're talking about non-traditional initiatives for Salt Pond, as best we can understand them. All right, that's the end of it. Okay, I do have the slides from the presentations that GHD did to the Board of Selectmen. I guess they did it on, what, the 26th of January? Is that right? Mike, are you going to be able to get me there?
He's going to try.
Okay, he hit escape.
Can I just ask a question on Norset Stream is the bit that if you're standing on the high parking lot and Fort Hill, and you look towards Orleans, is the stretch of water that goes back to 6?
Yes.
And that's the,
Painted piece of water.
oh, no,
Yes, that's
it's
the spot.
EAS, they're 35 and the seashore thing I want, and so that goes,
All right,
it's like a river, right? And it is known as Norset Stream,
Stream.
and it's
yeah.
got Mary Chase Gage. What are you,
Mary?
Chase? Well, I would say Chase Gage.
Yes.
And then that sits,
That's Nauset Stream. It's kind of a funny name, but the best name they have for it, right there on Route 6, as you go,
and then it goes down, and if
Yes,
you're,
past
but if you're,
Hemingway.
you could
Well,
have
no, it's not
I've-
Hemingway, it's further north, isn't it?
Hemingway's
They're fairly
further
south.
north.
It's if you stand in the high parking lot at Fort Hill, right, where you
Yes.
park your car, you turn so you face Orleans, so you're looking, and then you go down, the water goes, there's like what I called a river.
Going
There's a
up
path
into
goes
Town
down, goes
Cove.
down, going up from Town Cove.
Well,
Yeah.
isn't it
That is-
tidal? It's going back and forth with the
Well, no,
tide.
I want, is that called Norset Street?
Yes.
I call it
Yes, it
all
is.
Nauset Marsh.
Yes,
It's
yeah.
Well,
Town Cove and Nauset Marsh.
It's not a one-directional
No,
water.
Okay.
I know that, but it's the only thing is.
There
that-
is, what Janet is referring to is, you agree, I think everyone generally calls it Norset Marsh.
Yes.
The Cape Cod Commission, for reasons, I mean, I don't know much about this, I only know what I read on the paper. They have identified various areas within the marsh and the harbor
Well,
and
this
give
is-
them separate names. And one of them they call Norset Stream.
As they've
Well, it's
labeled it
also
here.
EAS 35 in the seashore nomenclature, and I'm just making
Okay.
sure I can call it something. It's a dragonfly spot.
Yep. No.
I mean, the seashore has everything identified where, or for any kind of wetlands, and I thought, well, never mind, it's irrelevant to this discussion, but now I know it's got a
Got it there.
vague name.
All right, well, okay.
Okay, good.
So this
Thank
is,
you.
There's a map.
this to me is the presentation that the,
It's not on.
that went to the Board of Selectmen.
This
and
one.
my
did it
notes
from
are
there.
showing that it's the 26th of January. I think I'm right on that.
Yes.
They called it.
Okay.
They called it Fort-
So, presentation outline, basically, they're talking about wastewater planning. So, and they make reference, they called, one of the tasks of the consultants was to go back and read the Stearns and Wheeler reports and basically bring up into their head everything that we knew as of that time. And they've got current planning events. Let's see, that technical manual, number one, to me, is a sort of a statement of existing conditions. And then number two is looking into the non-traditional technologies that might be used, but basically just sort of getting the Board of Selectmen familiar with what things they're talking about. All right, so we've got, and this is a little more formal name for those reports for the 2009, and they put it in terms of human health needs and also environmental needs. And this is where you get the public water supply, was one of the initiatives. And they looked at both Nauset, Town Cove, and Rock Harbor, and, that freshwater pond business, that was the alum treatments. So basically just sort of making reference back to those prior activities. All right, and so they did prepare the grant. They provide Jane Crowley with help doing that. Develop an estimate of the wastewater flows and basically present in a public meeting. Now, Technical Manual 3 and 4, let's see, Technical Manual 3 is going to be just on Salt Pond, and number 4 is going to be just on Town Cove, as they get a little bit more specific. And they're also, there's going to be a newsletter coming that kind of lays out the understanding of that. A 4-page newsletter was done for the previous 2009 work, and it seemed to be quite a helpful way of shrinking down the information so you could understand it. All right, needs assessment report, basically figuring out how big the problem is, what needs to be done, and they're both estuaries they're working on. These two maps are handy because they see the difference in the watersheds. See, if you can find Salt Pond up there, and you can see on the right side that blue cone pointing up, but then I'll look over on the other map and you see, well, somewhat of a red cone with lines in it. The professionals aren't consistent in their defining of the watersheds. And that's important because the engineers, in making their calculations as to how much septic nitrate is coming from a particular area, they need to have the area defined, because they're then going to count the houses and then come up with a calculation as to how much septic it is. But if the professionals are a little bit inconsistent as to where they say the line is, then, basically, we'll probably have to get to a point where we will decide that it doesn't make that much difference, or just say it's some of the uncertainty in the calculations, because that's, in my way, that's the nature of that work. I did take a course in groundwater and in the mapping of it, and all of those lines come from the fact that they just take the reading of the elevation of the water surface in a well, and then sort of relate them across and set up boundaries, lines of equal height of water in the wells. So, but they pointed out to the Board of Selectmen that's one of the uncertainties we're dealing with.
A lot of those changes where they included the islands in the second one. I don't see
Yes,
what.
they did. And they're
But
updated.
I mean, this part
we went
here
out to
shouldn't make any difference, there's nothing there.
Not
That's right.
occupied, yeah.
This part here could make a fairly big difference.
That's been developed, yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of housing in there.
That's Orleans.
That's Orleans.
I know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, they are-
I just meant in general. that-
Yeah, but
I
Orleans,
mean, I think this
You see,
little
we came out of it.
piece here probably only includes a few houses that are no longer included in this one.
Well, they took out where I am, because we're further up, we're at the bottom of the blue bit. Aspen is no longer on it.
Well, yeah.
I mean, I don't know how they choose that, but
Yeah.
we now drain apparently to the bay.
part
I guess what they mean is if you're in this area, they think you're draining this way.
Yes,
now,
that's right.
yes.
Yes, you're
But the
right.
part you pointed to in Orleans is,
Yeah.
Orleans that's what Orleans calls its downtown area, and that's where they propose to sewer.
Yes.
Are you sure on that, Liddell?
Pardon?
isn't it back on Route 6A, they call downtown? That's over on Nauset Heights.
Oh, okay, yeah, you're on Northwood Heights, yeah, no, they're not,
They're not gonna sewer over
they're not
there.
gonna, sewer- no, but they
They
are
have They
sewering
have changed down here.
Mill
because that's
Pond,
what you're
wherever
saying.
that is. I don't know if
Somewhere
that,
down about that bit.
Yes. So basically, we've got uncertainty there, but they're going forward.
Pretty
We aren't
big.
going to stop and at that point,
they
so,
only have to do 75% reduction, so maybe they feel they can do that by the sewering on 6A.
Oh, yeah, here, this tells us, that here it says Nauset Hub, it says Nauset Stream, that's Mary Chase Stream.
Yeah,
so what we've got in this slide is that
Others I haven't seen.
up there at Salt Pond, they're saying that, in reading the diagrams, that a round circle means, and it's 100% up there, so it means that 100% of the nitrate going in to Salt Pond has got to be dealt with, reduced, anything. And the Diamond 100% says that it's all of Eastham's responsibility, whereas if you go down further into the other maps, there are the round circles giving, well, I guess there's one there, 25%
Eastham.
in the Fort Hill area, and the Diamond shows 100%, meaning that it's all Eastham land, so Eastham is the responsible agent. When you get down further into Town Cove, it says that Eastham's responsibility is, I guess, 25%, and then Orleans is...
What is still not clear, from what I could figure out, and the question has been asked several times, is Eastham is 25%, or they changed it to 26, I can't read what that number up there. 25% responsible for the nitrate in Town Cove.
It's clear.
But what does that doesn't say that Eastham only has to reduce its contribution by 25%. In other words, if for Town Cove, the responsibility is 25% Eastham's, 75% Orleans. But how much does Eastham have to reduce its contribution? And that's a question that's been asked several times, and nobody has yet to answer it. Does that mean we have to reduce our contribution by 75%?
Well, the way I would read that is that,
No, it's not a case of reading it. I mean, everybody agrees these are the numbers. But, and Martin McDonald has pointed this out, does the fact that Eastham has a 25% contribution to the total problem define what its removal responsibility is? Or is it just saying that Town Cove in general has to have 75% less nitrate going into it? And so does Eastham get 25% of that 75? In other words, it's not clear what
What we
our
have to do.
reduction is.
Because if there's 25 homes or 150 homes on the Orleans side, then all 25 of our homes have to be sewered or removed from because they're the only contributors. And of the 150 homes, only 100 homes on the Orleans side, because they accomplished the 75%. So it gets into actual
'cause you
numbers
don't-
of properties sewered.
yeah, no,
Well, it's also, it requires a definition, and I don't know why somebody hasn't defined it yet.
Defined,
It seems
yeah.
to me that the answer is there.
no, yeah, that's a very good point, because the way I read this is the best way that the engineers have thought of to present the information, but you have to sort of be technically astute to grab that meaning, and that, to me, the average citizen of the town would have a hard time, coming up with a clear thought of what's going on there. I don't know.
These aren't GHD's numbers, these are just taken directly from the Cape Cod Commission plan.
Yes,
I mean,
yeah.
they came up with the 25% responsibility is Eastham and 75% responsibility is Orleans, based, I guess, on their calculations about the watersheds, who was doing what. And
Could be frontal boundaries.
So, Scott?
Let's just look at a simple one, the Salt Pond.
Yeah,
What does 100% mean? That, obviously, the one in Circle, we're 100% for both numbers.
Yeah.
Of course, our town contributes 100% of what goes in Salt Pond, it's within, completely within. And it says 100% is estimated percent responsibility of controllable attenuated load by town. Does that mean we're supposed to get it from whatever it is now to zero?
Yes.
And is there a date for doing that?
What there is a date for is, by mid-June, we have to file a watershed report. And this was covered, I assume, this meeting I haven't had a chance to look at yet. No, I guess it was in the January 20th meeting, when the Cape Cod Commission person came, explained what the requirements are. We have to file a watershed report by June 20th, and that report has to cover what she called 3 scenarios. We have to present a means of fulfilling our obligation by what are called traditional means, which means basically sewering. So if we were doing only sewering, what would we have to do? A layout of how we would do it if we were doing only non-traditional means, which means all the other things, the
Reactive areas.
the reactor barriers, the rest of it.
Waste
And I'm not
farming.
quite certain at this point where the newfangled toilets fit in, whether they're in traditional or not. I think they're in non-traditional. And then the third one, which I think is probably where our town and most towns would be going, is a layout of how it would be done if you used a combination of those 2 sets of methods. Use traditional methods, some sewering, and use some non-traditional methods, and that's what has to be done by June 19th. The timeline for implementation is generally a slower timeline. My understanding from what I've heard at Cape Cod Commission meetings and stuff, and even some of this was in that, the one you went to, Mike, that general meeting, they don't expect that all Cape towns could begin implementation immediately, especially of the more expensive methodologies. And that is in part because the whole financial plan for this assumes that there will be aid from the federal government and from the state. So the towns would be paying 50%, 25% would come from the state, 25% from the federal government. There's no anticipation that you could get either of those third parties, the state or the federal government, to front all the money needed for the total Cape at once. So it's a factor that they expect towns to do this on a timeline. I think one of the things that was left up in the air at that meeting, and I haven't seen anything since, and what I've been reading, that changes it, is how the commission will set priorities for who they want to see moving first. They threw out a number of different possibilities, but didn't resolve them. I doubt that we would be a priority. Just based, because some of the areas further up, in terms of their problems have much more acute problems than we have. So the answer to this question, I've heard the number 5 years thrown around from time to time as to when they might expect to see some towns beginning implementation.
So on Salt Pond, are we supposed to assume that if everybody in that blue area there had was on a sewer, it would solve the problem.
That would remove 100%.
Yeah, how about what's leaching out of the dump, which is right in the middle of it?
It's not clear that there's any nitrogen or
Oh,
phosphorus.
is that- is that-
what they're looking
Mercury,
at?
iron.
Okay, you gotta remember, yes, water bodies have all sorts of problems, but what they're looking at is the
So
nitrogen
there's,
problem.
yeah, there would be no nitrogen out.
You're right,
the dump at
you're
this
right,
point.
no.
Oh, there is?
No, the engineering thinking has to have an answer for the sewage from the houses, the septic. It also has to have an answer for the landfill. Say it is important or it is not important. Actually, Orleans is having to do the same thing because their landfill drains into Town Cove. And actually through
You mean an old one, I didn't, is it-
the old one, yes, yeah, the old closed landfill in
and
Orleans.
not where they have the transfer station now. That's way on the other side somewhere. Over by the,
Well, it's off-
further over, it's by this Toyota dealer.
Was it off Finley Road? Yeah.
Yeah, it's
back,
even further over.
back
than
in
that,
there,
closer to
yeah,
Harwich.
yeah. No, I'm just,
But they used to have one up in the Heights or something somewhere,
no, not to my knowledge.
into Town Cove.
Well, yeah, see Town Cove there, just right above the diamond, right, okay. My understanding is the closed landfill for Orleans is, for south, to the left. Yeah, straight down, right there, right in there, but further. And Orleans is landfill, so I've been listening to
That's
the.
where the yacht club is, isn't it?
Yeah, no, I've been listening to the planning efforts at the meetings in Orleans, and they're talking about, actually, permeable reactive barriers
Around the,
on an east-west line, right there where the road goes out to Nauset Beach. And we'll come back to that a little bit. So, all right, let's go further on. Okay, so this is a little bit more detail with the Nauset Estuary. To me, it just sort of says what we've been talking about up there. So we got a Rock Harbor situation, and see, they got the term there, Orleans and Eastham should continue to work for the reclassification. Most people think that they need to reclassify Rock Harbor to a lower environmental standard because it's a man-made feature. It's a dug boat basin. And in so doing, these numbers would change. So I think the way of looking at this is that there's plenty of work ahead of us over there in Nauset Marsh. We can pause a bit on Town Cove. And in a way, I think the state civil servants.
Not Town Cove, this is Rock Harbor you're talking about.
Yes, no, yeah.
Can't pause a bit on Town Cove.
No, can't pause on count, but the state civil servants would appreciate not having to deal with reclassification at the same time they're thinking about all the complex engineering that would be going on over.
I think, the last thing I remember, and I think Jane mentioned in one of our meetings, is that the last time this was discussed, DEP has to do the reclassification. They were expecting some new EPA regulations, and they didn't want to do anything until the new EPA regulations came out.
I see.
Because this all flows out of a federal statute, which the EPA administers. I mean, Section 208 is Section 208 of the Clean Water Act. And that's what EPA administers, and that comes down to the state and that sort of stuff. And so DEP is sort of responsible for the state's implementation of its responsibilities under 208. And that was my understanding of where it was at.
Charles, I saw Susan had a hand up a minute ago. We ran right by you, Susan, because you got to be a little bit more.
Oh, no, I
You
just
got-
didn't know if I could ask clarifying questions.
Sure.
And answer it. So there is no timeline set yet for any of these little areas with the 100%?
Implementation?
Yeah.
Well, as Adele says, they would like to see it within 5 years. It's generalized, but
But there isn't a
not
plan
a
that
deadline. Yeah, we
outlines that.
don't, we're not going to get any penalties of,
Oh, okay.
Well,
I don't know.
No,
I wouldn't make any statements about penalties or not.
well,
You have to remember, as a background to all of this, that we will submit the watershed reports to the Cape Cod Commission, we and all the other towns. They will look at them, and they will say whether or not they approve them. They will then send them on to the state, and eventually probably to EPA. And it's either in September or October, there will be another go-around in the federal court case. That case has not been dismissed. The court is simply awaiting further action. So the plaintiffs in that case will then get their say as to whether or not they think what has happened is sufficient to meet the EPA. That suit is against the EPA, oddly enough, but that's their handle in getting into federal court. They will get their say as to whether or not they think that all of these actions since it's now a year ago, September, so it's like not last September, but a year before that, all of those actions since then are sufficient to meet what the EPA is required to do.
So the
Under-
document being drafted for June would have a more specific timeline as to when these numbers would be met.
It's not, I can only tell you what I have heard the document described at. I don't know anything more than that, and I didn't hear a reference to a timeline. But that's.
Adele, you have a great oversight because of your legal background. The judges that are hearing the case now, is it possible if...
One judge.
One. Is it possible that that judge could be replaced if a new administration comes in and it's not? Okay, it's just
Federal judges are lifetime appointments.
appointees, and there's no chance even if...
Yeah, other than misbehavior or something
Oh,
like that. But it's a misbehavior or death.
Okay.
Yeah. Susan, I was going to ask, have you been following what they call the 208 wastewater planning?
No,
No? Oh,
but it's on my, to go look it up.
yeah, well, in the past, an environmental group, Conservation Law Foundation, and I guess it's something like Buzzards Bay Coalition, two environmental groups, sued the EPA for not being aggressive enough in leading the improvement of wastewater situations on the Cape. All right, so, and as Adele said, there was an agreement between the plaintiff and the people bringing the action to,
Between the plaintiffs who brought the action and the EPA,
thank you.
they agreed to suspend further action in the lawsuit pending the Cape Cod Commission had come forward with this plan. There were two separate lawsuits. Now, I'm only going to talk about one. Okay. Yeah, there was the one about point, non-point sources, which is still,
Yes.
but one lawsuit said the EPA has an obligation to approve area-wide water quality management plans. The Cape had not had an area-wide water quality management plan produced or approved since 1978. As it turned out, as a side thing that developed later on in the course of this lawsuit, turns out most Massachusetts communities are in exactly the same position. They haven't done
Wow.
anything since 1978. So who knows? Does this become a statewide suit at some point? So they said the EPA was derelict because it had a duty to approve updated current plans. It's an interesting theory. I don't know in the long run whether it holds water or not. But the judge was unwilling to dismiss the suit. And they had lots and lots of motions that became very clear he was not going to dismiss the suit. So the EPA decided that what they would do is agree that maybe we should have a new water quality management plan. It's not exactly saying that
Real
in so many
close.
words, but, and the Cape Cod Commission, which is an agency of Barnstable County, came up with this proposal to develop a area-wide, and it took some state legislation, which I don't recall at the moment, to develop an area-wide water quality management plan for the Cape. And so, once that was settled, that was going to go forward, the plaintiffs and the defendants stipulated to allow a period of time to pass for the plan to be produced, and then for the court, for them to return to court to talk about whether or not the plan was adequate, and I guess whether or not the actions taken pursuant to the plan are adequate. It's a little fuzzy, but I think they probably worked that into their settlement. I read the settlement just over a year ago, so I don't remember it that well. So that's how this all came about, and when they go back to court, they'll be looking at it again. And the Conservation Law Foundation, in various statements, has made it very clear that they are closely following this, because everybody considers the Cape estuaries to belong to the whole country, and I agree that's a good way to look at them, but then maybe the whole country should kick in some of the money.
Help us out.
That's less clear. So they've made it very clear that they will be following this very closely, both here and then what implementation there is.
Thank you for that. Can I ask another question?
Yeah.
So you have the report due in June, and is this all going into the report?
What do you mean, is this all?
So it sounds like a decision needs to be made of how you're going to achieve
Yeah.
this, and I was wondering if anyone had made decisions on that yet.
Well,
That's what these
no,
two
but-
technical
but-
memos are.
Yeah, the town has hired a consulting engineer
Okay.
to come up
With a proposal?
with a proposal. And the consulting engineer is in the process of studying it from an engineering standpoint, but they're also in the process of informing the Board of Selectmen as to how big the problem is, and they'll be coming along with ways that it might be approved, such that, by the time we get to May, before the report is due, the Board of Selectmen will, hopefully feel comfortable that what we have speaks well of the town for our efforts to do it. But I could also add that now Orleans, they have the other side of Town Cove in their watershed. They're going to need to be making the same kind of report going forward. All the other towns on the Cape will all be doing the same thing. And having all of these watershed reports come in has never happened before. So it's going to be a lot of work up at the Conservation Commission level, as to,
The Cape Cod Commission.
Cape Cod Commission, yeah.
Charles referred earlier, when he was going through the early stages of this presentation, to something called Technical Memorandum 3. And those are the two memoranda that the engineers will be producing, GHD. And they will lay out suggested approaches for Salt Pond and suggested approaches for Eastham in Town Cove.
Okay.
And there's one thorny question in that. I think most everyone believes we will have to do some sewering. And you can put down the sewers and you can lay the pipes, but the question is, where do the pipes go to? We don't have a facility that, in existence, that could accept the sewerage. When there were preliminary discussions of this in 2009, there was some thought that if there was sewering, Orleans would take its current Tri-Town facility and turn that into a facility that could receive the sewerage as well. Right now, all it does is take the septic, it's hauled away in trucks. And that they would turn that into a facility to receive sewerage, and Eastham and Brewster, to the extent they sewered, could run their pipes to Orleans. In this whole process that Charles has been talking about, the Orleans process, decide what they want to do, they are still planning to go ahead and build a sewerage plant. They are not planning to accept any sewerage from Brewster or Eastham. And so far, they have been pretty steadfast in that decision, even though there's a lot of pressure about the idea of having economies of scale, and that, it would be better if you had 3 towns going into it rather than 1. But in the meantime, Eastham now is sort of left alone in trying to figure out how to deal with this dilemma because Brewster has accepted an invitation from Yarmouth. Yarmouth is building, or has a plant, I don't know what it is. But anyway, I think Brewster thinks they're going in the Yarmouth direction. So it leaves us and,
High and dry.
yeah.
But not too dry.
Well, the other thing is, and I can understand their viewpoint, if they process our septic waste or sewage, they really have trouble discharging it. That's a big problem for them.
Yeah.
Unless they ship it back and discharge it in Eastham. That's where their problem lies. It's not unkind, and economies of scale would help them
Yeah.
certainly reduce the cost, but they can't discharge our treated water in their watersheds.
Yeah.
So it's, some of this is
Thorny issue.
very, very interesting, and you wonder if at some point some third party is, despite all this, going to intervene and make decisions. Because I
All
can't,
right.
Is
I-
the Orleans, the septic system is going to go in the same areas, the way, same shed, what do we call that, estuary is?
They try to
Tri-town.
discharge the water where it comes from back into the same ground.
No, but I mean, where would they be building their
oh, it's in the same location.
same location?
That one is coming down. Oh, and by the way, I learned this, the letter that I got from the guy who pumps off septic. You know, everyone talks about Tri-Town being commissioned in December. Tri-Town is not accepting septic after July 1st
That's right.
this
June
year.
1st.
Yes,
July
June.
1st.
Well,
June, it was,
June-
It was in
June
Saturday's
1st?
paper.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was in the
yeah.
newspaper.
June 1st.
Oh, well, I got, it was June, well, it's June 1st. I didn't know what the date is, because it didn't make a lot of difference to me, except for the fact, okay.
Good.
Right now, when your septic gets pumped,
Yeah,
it gets hauled away.
Yeah.
And it gets hauled to this facility in Orleans.
yeah.
Well, that facility is being decommissioned, in effect, knocked down, beginning in December. But they are stopping acceptance of septic June 1st. So as a result, all these septic haulers, or septic pumpers, have to find some other place to take it. And my septic pumper has advised me that he has studied the matter closely and has decided there is no economic solution for him, so he is going out of the business of septic pumping.
I've also seen an enormous amount of tankers running around Eastham the last few weeks.
Yeah.
I have the figures of what they're pumping on a daily basis.
Oh, that's interesting, you know.
Oh, yeah, I'm keeping an eye on this one.
Yeah.
We were pumped in October, so I got a
Yeah,
couple
you're
of years
safe.
before I got to worry about it.
You know, that's a good little bit of a segue for a point that I wanted to bring up here. Okay, the Cape Cod Times on the 5th of March had this article. and-
Yes, that's the one I
Okay.
referred to.
I have been going to the monthly Tri-Town Board of Managers meetings, just following the subject down there, and I can tell you that the details in this report are spot on for a good summary of what's there. The reason why they are stopping at Tri-Town is that it's an old plant, and they're questioning the soundness of spending money to fix it up to go a couple years more. It may be just wasting money. In other words, you're spending money on a plant that's 25, 30 years old. So the Board of Selectmen from the three towns, Brewster, Orleans, and Eastham, voted, I guess was the end of last month, to yes, go ahead and close it. Now, they decided to close it in June as opposed to, I think an earlier date was October or something like that, because you also have to come up with the staff at the plant to work your way to the end of closing. And it just seemed to be it was lower risk to start closing the plant down. The staff has to essentially go through and take different things apart, clean them out, and bring them up to the point where it can be basically demolished by non-sewer professionals. Now, let's see, the Cape Cod Commission last month called a meeting of all of the folks on the Cape who manage wastewater treatment plants. and it was chaired by Patty Daly. And basically, it was a planning meeting. It was basically asking everybody to stop and look at what's going on the Cape in terms of capability to provide septage treatment, and such that everybody knew what could be known and was able to make a statement as to whether it helps or hurt them in some way. And at that meeting, that Patty committed the Cape Cod Commission to hire a contractor to study the requirement for the disposal of what they call biosolids. Now, biosolids are the old sludge that comes from wastewater treatment plants after everything has been treated. It's just the residual organic material that's not going to break down any further by microorganisms. So there's going to be a Cape-wide need study on that subject, and there's also going to be a parallel one on the septage. What is the entire Cape's need for septage, and such that it would be public information, and that the towns that operate wastewater treatment plants, they're under, for the most part, their own management or their own joint management if they've gone into it with some other town. So if nothing else, it just tells you there's a lot of water subjects being debated on the Cape right now. All right.
So
let's-
they've agreed to take away a service of pumping, or there's going to be a reduction in a sewage service in our area without a new service, replacing it in that, like, in-between time. Is that correct?
Yes, yes.
No.
No.
The pumping will go on. Okay. The septage that is pumped out
Yeah.
can be trucked to other locations. But what has been the issue all along is the understanding that for us on the Outer Cape, if we can't go to Orleans, it means we have to go further away. The pumpers base their rates for what they charge you to pump on how far they have to truck it. So I guess my guy is a small guy. He can't come up with an economic formula that makes it work for him. He has suggested to me another company who is willing to take on this responsibility, which is a much bigger company. And I assume when they pump, are going to charge me more because they have to truck it further away. Some people, I mean, there was some discussion a long time ago at a Board of Selectmen meeting about this. Neil was talking about it and raised. And, I mean, it appears that it could be that some of it actually has to be trucked off Cape.
Yes,
That they're
correct.
not- they're
Because
not
Yarmouth
facilities.
doesn't have the capacity to handle what they're handling now, and an additional East Ham's wastewater. It's going to have to maybe go to Wareham, then maybe as far as Springfield.
Yeah. And I think as a prelude to this meeting, you're discussing the Cape Cod Commission meeting, I had heard that the notice of this meeting had indicated that one of the things they were looking at was whether or not, well, it wouldn't be the Cape Cod Commission, I guess it would be the county, but whether the county should somehow take responsibility for establishing 4, whatever they call them, treatment facilities across the Cape, so that all of the Cape towns would be served. And that may be what she's talking about when she talks about the second thing would be a consultant looking at what is the need for septic treatment, because obviously there's a Cape-wide need. We have some incredible number of septic systems. I saw it once at some Cape Cod Commission thing. By the way, if you want to familiarize yourself with the 208 plan, it is online. I'd suggest that rather than trying to read the whole thing, you go to Chapter 8, which is a summary, and sets out a lot of this basic information, and also has the information about the watershed reports. And then they also have an appendix, and unfortunately, I don't think they've yet come up with a real index to how you find things. But in that appendix, there's a fact sheet on Rock Harbor, a fact sheet on Town Cove, and a fact sheet on Salt Pond. There's also something on Wellfleet, which theoretically we have a little bit of, but as a matter of, it's a practical matter, it's just not terribly important to us. And if you sort of look at Chapter 8 and you look at those 3 three appendices, gives you a good sense at least of what the Cape Cod Commission said that we had to do as a town. And they have also, and there's something else lurking in the background of all this, which wasn't discussed in any of these meetings, I don't think. Cape Cod Commission has from the beginning of when they started the 2-8 process, because just like we have a shared estuary with Orleans, there are many situations across the Cape where that is true. And so they have said, at one point, they were almost saying they wanted a waste management agency composed of both towns, where there are shared watersheds. They backed off of that, but still, when you read Chapter 8, you'll see there is a lot of discussion in there about the need where there are shared watersheds for the involved towns to work together. I haven't seen anything in terms of implementation of that, what they envision, how that's going to come to be, but at least it's a theme in what they write about the towns working together.
And one quick aside, that article says 2 million gallons of Orleans sewage, and Eastham's about 1 million gallons. It's almost 3 million gallons. It's got to go somewhere annually. I have no idea where 3 million gallons is going to go.
All right,
Talking about
let's,
sewerage in the,
Yeah, well,
I
they're- well,
wasn't here, so I didn't
The
read the
tank,
article.
the tank, they're talking 2 million gallons get pumped annually from Orleans. My records that I've been able to review at our health
Oh,
department.
septage. you mean.
Septage is
Okay.
about 1 million gallons. It's 3 million gallons. Yarmouth in no way can accept anywhere near that amount, including Wareham or Springfield even. It's a huge problem.
yeah, and I could add to what Mike says. The manager at Tri-Town, let's see, I'm not sure I can bring up his name quickly, but in the meetings,
Charles, let me just point out, we're almost at 3:30,
yep,
and
yep, we got some
I
other
do have
things
to
on
leave
there.
at 4 because I've got a ton of stuff, as you can imagine, having been away 6 weeks.
All right, well, I'll tell you what, okay.
Now my router has
the-
decided to kick everything out.
The-
You can't get back in.
The
Great fun.
Jay down here works for the town of Orleans. He is the manager for the plant.
Okay, that's it.
He
yes.
he speaks at the meetings of his conversations with the managers of the other plants. There's a Chatham plant, there's a Yarmouth plant, whatnot. So, and I feel comfortable when at least he has a little bit of a pulse as to who's hurting and who isn't hurting on that. So, but let's move on to this one. This is an important one here. Okay, over there on the right-hand side, what we're talking about is that the way the engineers figure out how much nitrate is coming from the humans and getting into the water is that they come up with a figure of how many gallons per day is coming from a house. Basically, it's gallons per person per day. Okay, now,
Where do we see that number? I'm lost. Now you've
yeah, no,
even got my mind
no,
confused.
okay, well.
Is that number up there somewhere?
Yeah, see let's see, kilograms per year, number 2 with a footnote on it in kilograms.
Number 2. Okay.
Over on the
there's
right-hand side.
122 gallons per day per person, that is?
Yeah,
Per day is per person, yeah.
per person per day, okay.
Okay,
Now,
thank you.
the Cape Cod Commission, in their planning, in the 208 planning, they came up with a standard figure that they said was appropriate for Cape Cod. All right, now, but our engineers are coming up with a figure that they say is more appropriate for us. Now, for a place like Orleans, it's easy to do because.
No, the Cape Cod Commission's number is for Eastham. It's not just a Cape, they base the Eastham number on data extrapolated from Cape Cod as a whole, because we didn't have a way yet.
We don't have a way to measure
We
it.
didn't- And
Right.
what our engineers are saying is they think that the figures that were developed for the planning of the municipal water system, which are these figures in the first column, are more reliable figures.
They are.
But that is something that will have to be resolved with the commission as to what set of numbers
Right,
they
yeah,
can use.
I'm just bringing that to your attention, so you understand there's uncertainty there, too. Okay, let's see, Okay, we got, now, I think I've already said this before, but basically memo number 2 deals with the non-traditional technologies. So that, so that'll be coming along. We have a draft of it now, and that's how they're approaching that particular thing. Okay, let's see. Comparison of technology tables. So we're in the non-traditional. I'm not sure how much help going through all of this details is, but basically what they've done is they've looked at all the non-traditional ways of bringing down the amount of nitrate getting off the land into the water. So there's a lot of detail in here. Just pointing that out. So, okay, table of topics, and these are the hybrids as for memos 3 and 4, which are coming along in the future. A lot of detail here, so I'm just going to kind of skip and go over it. And that's ASAR. It's what's the term on that? Alternative Screening Analysis Report. So they're looking through all of the non-traditional ways of doing it and seeing which way might work. And I think we've already kind of mentioned it at the table, but there's been a proposal. It looks like the salt pond would be an appropriate place for what they call permeable reactive barriers. And maybe at this point I'll just know that there is a thing called that. Shellfish aquaculture is another way of doing it. We've also require bylaws that cut back on the amount of fertilizer getting off people's lawns and into the water. So, okay, I mean, it's just kind of, I just want to kind of let you get up to date a little bit on what's already been happening, because we've had kind of a busy winter here. So that takes care of that. Okay, so they're working towards coming up with a newsletter, and they're working towards coming up with a hybrid technical reports 3 and 4, one for Salt Pond and one for the Cove. So the next meetings that I would expect GHD to be briefing the Board of Selectmen on in the next month are going to be on those topics. And I believe this is the last one we have in there. Okay. Just so we don't get badly pinched here to the end, I'd like to move off this subject. And we've talked about, brought in Tri-Town a little bit there. This is just for your information. Okay. Last May, the town of Orleans voted $50,000 to study making the channel that goes out from Town Cove to the ocean a better channel. Basically, the fishermen were saying that it's shoaling in. The channel is not as wide as it used to have been, and they asked that work be done to basically support safety and commerce. However, there is a little bit of that. If they made the channel better, there'd be more flushing, so there would in fact be some improvement in the water quality due to dredging. And I guess my way of looking at it is that if over the same 5-year period you're putting in things to help take out the nitrate, like permeable reactive barriers and floating wetlands, you should have a drop in the nitrate in the water, but you don't know exactly which one caused it that much. So, I mean, things are not easy. Now, but the final report that was done by a company called Woods Hole Group is on the website for the town of Orleans. And I'm very much impressed by the quality of the work. If nothing else, the aerial images are incredibly good. And you'd go to look, I was just suggesting, if you're really interested, you can go to the Orleans website, and you go to water quality, and then you see Article, I guess it's 58. I'm not sure what that means, and then I guess the next term is estuaries. If you click on that, there's 3 files in there, and they have the details in it. And the report shows that there are 4 areas of shoals. 3 of them are in Orleans, and 1 of them is in Eastham. And they do have and they do show the Cape Cod National Seashore boundary, the Eastham Orleans boundary, and they show a number of images that tell what was going on 100 or so years ago back there too. So it looks like a pretty good piece of work. All right, so let's.
Do they make any recommendation about the efficacy of dredging? Or is this just a study to find out what's there?
Well, it's a feasibility assessment. They essentially, they do the feasibility from the regulatory standpoint, from the environmental standpoint, and from the engineering standpoint.
But that's just whether it's possible to dredge. They don't make any recommendation as to whether dredging would be useful, considering all the problems, including the fact that the inlet shifts from year to year.
Hour to hour.
Yeah,
You dredge
I guess I can read the report myself, but it seems to me it's a lot of money
Wasted.
to spend and not get a recommendation on efficacy.
well, I've not read it all the way through, but they're pointing out that they have things like endangered species, so those studies would have to be done.
Terrapins.
And they point out that they would not want to harm any existing eelgrass, which might be remaining out
No, I
there.
understand all that, that what they were looking at whether or not it's a feasible thing to do, and that has to go with, the protected species and all that, but it seems to me that there's a larger question than feasibility. Even if you decide it's feasible, is it sensible, is it worthwhile?
Yeah.
And I was wondering if they offered any
No,
opinion
no,
on
I-
that
You
question.
dredge as fast as the sand comes right back at you.
No,
That's what,
right,
that's what
right.
was said, but.
Well, it's in there, for best they know. And no, I don't think they hit conclusions. They just told people if this was this would be like this over on the other side. Okay, that's, okay, let's change topics again. We had talked about the reformatting of the Water Management Committee's website. All right, and and what we said before was that we wanted to put it off such that we had everybody here talking about it. So I'm proposing that it go on the agenda for next month, and I can add to that let's see, I did get comments on an additional on a draft that I made, and Adele, I was able to scoop in your comments of the 20th of October and the 10th of November, and I think what I did was send out that revised copy to everybody. Now, I can't remember exactly when I did it, but I'll go back, figure it out, and if I didn't get it properly out to you, I'll send it all out to you.
Okay, I guess he's discussing it next month. I've been thinking about it. I think it's getting unduly complicated by, people are getting into the question of how are you going to transmit this information to the people who are revising the website? I don't think we have to look at that now. I think what we need to decide is what folder setup makes sense and what files belong in those folders.
Thank you, Adele.
And just stick with that.
Yep.
And then after we have
Yes.
decided that,
Yes.
we can decide how we are going to tell the person who has to take the existing material how they identify it by the correct, that's a procedural question. The only question that we really need is what folders should we have and what existing documents should be in those folders. And the other thing I was thinking about, and I'm not certain if this would help or not, whether or not we should just do screen captures of the current setup. So that, it's like a tree, huh?
So we know where we came from.
Yeah, so we have a
Yes.
tree, and the
Yes.
tree is, here's the first page, the page that lists everything. Then if you go into this one folder, here's what that looks like. Not for us to discuss necessarily, but simply to have it. It's just simply all laid out there. And actually, once you get that tree, it's not that hard to just simply put a note next to the document in the folder and say, this stays, this goes,
I
this
tried to
stays,
do
but
that.
that's
And it was
renamed.
really, I tried to do it by setting up a table
Uh-huh.
where you started with the file,
Yeah,
name.
but that's too, I think
Well,
screen
but-
captures.
Well,
are
screen
much
cap,
better.
but, so you set, but to do what you're doing, because I refuse to read what you, truly,
Yeah, yeah,
Charles,
yeah.
what you send out, because I can't make head nor tail
All
of
right.
it.
So
Okay.
let's
So
just-
much stuff there. It
So
needs
just-
to be that, you've got, what you're saying, file A, B, C, and D go into this one.
No, no, I'm not saying
No, it's about-
they go
they're
into.
in this one,
No, no.
now.
I'm just saying, when we get all finished, these will be the folders that we will have. And these will be the files in the folders. These are the names of the files. And then, is this a sensible way to organize our materials? Once that has been decided, I'm willing to work with Charles and identify what's already on the website and say, okay, part of the problem is there's a lot of documents on the website that have the wrong names.
I saw that and I opened one and I was like, I don't know where to begin.
No, I don't know who came up with the crazy names. So we have to identify the document and say, okay, right now it's called X, the correct name is Y, and then the person knows, okay, now I have the right name, now I know I have to put it in this folder.
That's what I
Uh,
basically did for about 10 files and quit.
Yeah,
It's, I think it can be done. But,
Okay.
but we don't have to get into that. All we have to get into is what folders do we want to see as
Exactly.
the end result, and what files, by their proper names, do we want to see as in those folders? And nothing else.
okay, so I can take that as something for me to do,
Okay.
and I'll come back in April and,
Charles, I'd like, if you could move that to the May 10th meeting, and the only reason I suggest that, April 12th isn't that far away, and by that time, traditionally, that's a few weeks just before town meeting, and there's always some articles that appear suddenly, then we may need to leave time possibly to discuss. I don't know at this point, haven't seen them, but just, can I move that to May 10th, the discussion of
Done.
reformatting? Thank you.
done.
Are you submitting an article
Yeah.
to sue the town?
I am not, I think it's a lovely idea, and I'd love to see such an article, but,
It ain't never gonna happen.
well, but no, I'm not submitting an
All right,
article.
good, good.
But I know that prior meeting we've had in the past, some discussions of
All right,
articles. We
let's
may or
see.
may not, I don't know.
Okay, let me move on to a different item. All right, the town clerk received a request for a particular set of Water Management Committee documents.
No, they're not documents. Since the request is actually addressed to me, through the town clerk to me, let me describe it, okay?
Yeah, if you would,
Town
please.
clerk received a request
Oh, yeah.
for copies of all emails received or sent by the clerk between June 30th and January, whatever's the last date, January 31st.
Yeah.
So,
Well, you've got June 1 here, is that?
no, Charles put June on
Oh, so
there.
it's what,
The
June
requ-
30?
Yeah, it's June 30th.
June 30th, okay.
So I am
Beside
assembling.
yourself, right?
Well, no, I am just moving, copying emails and putting them in another folder, so that I still have the stuff, but I have something. And,
This probably includes things like, yes, I can make the meeting, no, I
oh, yeah,
can't.
the request was
It's
for
for
all
everything.
emails. I am honoring.
What they're looking for.
Yeah.
It's kind of funny, actually, when you start looking at some of them, but.
Adele, I'm very appreciative of you being the person there to respond.
And you want me to go on computers.
The fellow was the veterinarian or something?
No.
No.
The request
the name
came
on
from a
it.
town resident named Tom Johnson.
Tom Johnson.
Yeah.
Johnson, yeah. So, all right, well,
We
my
all
point,
know Tom
my point in
Johnson.
bringing it up
Who's
is
made similar
He has a
requests in the
history.
past.
I wanted
okay.
everybody on the
I tried to
table
find
to
out who it
know
was, and I
that
couldn't.
it's an action that's
You
going
don't
on.
know?
No.
And
Haven't been
but
around that long, I
Trump
guess.
America.
Adele
Oh.
is leading the effort on that, so, and it does,
I'm the clerk,
Responding.
I'm
Reacting,
responding.
yeah.
Responding to that effort.
so, all right. Let's talk
long
about
is
something a little bit different here. I passed out a paper copy of the 2015 annual report. And that's the copy that went to the town to go into the town book for the past year.
Will they have room on?
Yes, it is long, but it's amazing all of the different subjects that we touch on over the course of the year here. And Susan, if nothing else, it may give you a pretty good summary of the different topics that come up. I can send, if you give me your email, I'll send it over to, I'll send you some of the copies of it that we've done in previous years. So, okay, and that was something that the committee had to get done, and so the committee's finished that. I'm just kind of looking at the other topics that are still moving along here. I've got on the affordable housing development proposals, as I understand it, that topic, it continues, and that there is the looking at the Purcell property for constructing affordable housing.
Has that RFP gone out?
No, it's on the Wednesday meeting this week at 3 p.m. for the Board of Selectmen. I see that they're talking
That
about an
topic,
RFP
Okay.
that has to do with the Purcell property. We had some concern when the Governor Prince property, a similar size acreage to the north, was discussed earlier in January and February, because it'll be a source of sewage, and that will have to be in some way addressed. So that's why the committee is kind of watching that particular one. Okay, so we got that one going on. Let's talk about the Orleans Water Quality Advisory Panel.
It's my understanding, we only look at wastewater for reasons related to pollution, not pollution, the nitrification and phosphorus, right?
You're back on affordable housing, or?
Yes.
Yes, those would be the two chemical substances that would harm the environment if not adequately treated. All right, the Orleans Water Quality Advisory Panel. I continue to attend those meetings. I'm the alternate representative of the town, and
Who's the primary?
Sandy Bain.
Oh, okay, all right.
Okay. Now, it appears to me that the process is going along quite well. I just was going to mention to you a couple of the topics that are being discussed over the last 45 days. They meet, for 4 hours in the morning once a month, or they meet more frequently if they need to. And it's the Orleans Board of Selectmen, plus representatives from all the different environmental groups in Orleans, and they normally have Brian from DEP, lost his full name, and a representative from the Cape Cod Commission very frequently. So what they're talking, they've done some breakout sessions in the past month where they actually took a group into a small room, and they talked heavy detail on all the technology of what they're calling this permeable reactive barrier. And I can explain that more, but let's just keep going. They're talking about aquaculture, I guess this Wednesday, in great detail, and I believe they've also had a breakout session for the technology involved in floating constructed wetlands. So they're kind of at that point. And these non-technology type of approaches are things that they want to look at in detail to see if they can, in fact, get the amount of nitrate removal from those pursuits and not have to spend more money on a more involved wastewater treatment system. There have been, I think, at least 3 meetings that have talked about the development of downtown Orleans, and I mean that, by that I mean Route 6A and Main Street. And basically, they've had professional urban development folks come in and lead those sessions. They were trying to figure out the impact of if they sewer the village, which is what they plan to do, what impact that will be on in terms of just the number of people who live there and just the kind of general commercial activity. And consultants are pointing out that there are people who go to places like that to see, and there are other people who go to places like that to be seen. In other words, it's known to be a buzz area and a buzz of activity and whatnot. And the idea being is that if you did sewer the town, you could then have apartments over shops and still meet the codes. So they have been heavily discussing that, and there's also been a developer who has come in and who has briefed his plan for developing that area just pretty much right around where I'm talking about. Basically, you've got the Mid-Cape hardware store and in that general area. There's a Todd Thayer who's briefed their plan at one of these meetings to the group. And they're also talking about in building a wastewater treatment plant, they're talking about the approach of making it a public-private partnership, where you actually get a private organization to design it, to build it, and possibly operate it, which is a new idea coming along in the engineering construction profession. And I think it's taking a lot of people time to digest the concept, because we haven't really been doing that. But basically they were saying that there is evidence in other places that show that doing a sewage treatment plant as a public-private partnership has some advantages that otherwise you can't get to. So that it's heavy thinking. And of course, we have our consultants back for the last 5 or 7 years have been recommending that we need to have Eastham ready to join some type of sewage treatment activity in Orleans, just on the economics of scale, it being an advantage to do it that way, particularly that area down around the Rotary and coming up a little bit on the east side of Route 6.
Yeah.
So,
As I mentioned earlier, Charles, so I don't think the issue is our readiness and willingness to join. It's Orleans' lack of receptivity to accepting us. I mean, the consultants are saying this because it was in the 2009 plan, and they keep saying it, but, I mean, there is no way that we can make this happen unless Orleans changes its current position.
Invites us in.
We can try to do what we can do to get them to change their mind, but, I think a lot of their mind is based on cost, what it will cost to build the plant, as well as the discharge, because they would need a bigger plant. And so that's,
yeah, well,
it's nice to say that, but there has to be a tool to make it happen.
well, yeah, my concern is that if there was an opening, we didn't miss it.
I'm
that ship
certain we
has
won't
sailed.
miss it. I'm certain we won't miss it if there's an opening. I think everybody's waiting for the opening.
Yeah, no, I mean, and yes, when you stop and think about it, Orleans has spent quite a bit of money developing these different concepts. That they now have on board an engineering firm, I guess it's AECOM, and that firm is doing all of the different technologies to include there the identified agent to lead the demolition of the Tri-Town plant, just the contracting out, breaking it down, hauling off the pieces like that. So it's a lot of effort down in Orleans going on in that direction. Let's see. I don't think that, we've got the water supply item on the agenda here, just the comment, Jane is not with us, she is away until the 17th of March, but as I see it, road work on the secondary roads in Eastham continues. It's not a big effort, but there's been work on Kingsbury.
It is stopped. As I mentioned before, I think the best source of information for people who want to keep apprised of this is the town's website, the
Yes.
Municipal Water Project website.
Yes.
Plus which the ability to get regular email updates from them on what's happening. And their last update, which I guess came out after they'd finished, the work on Kingsbury Beach Road has been finished. It brings the water line via Great Pond and Kingsbury Beach up to Route 6, and it is stopped. And that's where things will stay probably, they say spring, so I guess, they'll base it on the weather. I think this thing mentioned April. At that point, they'll go on to 6. So far as the northern section, I never remember which is 5 and which is 6. The northern section has very little more to be done. They go out, they need to do 2 things. They need to go on 6 between Massasoit and Great Pond, because they skipped over that to get into Great Pond, because they weren't allowed to be on 6 at that point. And then, so they need to do that strip, and then they need to do from the end of Kingsbury Beach Road down to Locust, which is virtually nothing, because that's where the southern one picks up. And the southern one, they're down below Governor Prince. I don't recall exactly where. And they will go down then to the Rotary. And once that's done, they'll start on the other half of the loop. And I'm certain they'll get all that finished, because since they can't work on 6 during the summer, and at the rate they're going, they'll finish all this. They'll finish what there is on 6 before June, and then be starting on the other areas where they can work during the summer.
Yeah. And let me just kind of, as we close up, right now, the
You must have been
large
happy.
steel
Someone
globe
coming past your house.
that it is to contain the water has been constructed, and it's sitting on the ground surrounding the central concrete column, which is going to hold it in the air. And the idea is that that steel globe will be lifted, kind of like sliding a donut up a pencil or something here,
Well, that's
into
what's gonna
position. To me, it's a neat piece of engineering when you stop and think about what they're doing. And one can see it just by driving up and looking in from the outside. You don't need to go in there.
In fact, I think they don't want you in there.
Right.
Yeah, they
No
got it.
trespassing signs are
They
up.
do.
They've been very clear.
Right.
They do
We've
not
been
want.
to the gate.
But you can see pretty well from outside.
Yeah.
We've been
Yeah,
to the gate.
and
Yeah.
it's also.
I'm just, in terms of
Sending traffic
our
up there,
audience, I
so-
don't want to leave any
Don't go up there today.
misconceptions. They do not
backyard,
want
I
people
don't have
on there.
Or you
Yeah.
can say you're going to the stump dump.
But it is a neat
They don't
thing.
want you.
And I was also going to say that there's a top to it, kind of a round, circular, saucer-like structure. And apparently, once they get the big globe up, they'll pick up the cover and weld that in place, too. So as I say, it's just kind of a once-in-a-lifetime for a small town like Eastham to see quite a neat piece of engineering going on.
This skyscraper.
Charles,
Well,
considering the time and responsibilities of other people, I'd make a motion, we adjourn at this time.
all right, those in favor?
Second.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you,
5-0,
Thank you, Mike.
6-0, excuse me. Thank you very much, folks.
Thank you for joining.